Welcome to the WEInvested podcast, where we teach you how to save and make more cash. Today on the WEInvested podcast, we have with us Nicki Krawczyk. She is a copywriter with 15 plus years of experience, as well as the founder and CEO of Filthy Rich Writer. Nicki, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's an honor.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, ma'am, for sure. So just to kind of jump right into it, what exactly is Filthy Rich Writer?
So Filthy Rich Writer is the company that I put together to teach people to create their own successful copywriting careers. I kind of took everything that I learned to build my own career and put it into a website and, of course, also a course to let people take control of their own careers.
That's awesome. And so for the people who may not be too familiar with what a copywriter is, what is your definition of a copywriter and how did you get your start?
Absolutely. So copywriting is advertising and marketing writing. But for all those people who are like, oh no, I don't want to be salesy or anything like that, it's really not about like push or, used car salesman kind of stuff. It's really about creating a connection between people who have a want or a need and the company or organization who has the solution to that want or that need. And the copywriters craft the messaging, the copy that helps make that connection and uses wording that resonates with the target audience. So copywriting is really about making connections. And I should say too that, I call my company Filthy Rich Writer, and a lot of people are like, oh no, which, it's fine. It's a little bit polarizing, no problem. But to us, being filthy rich means having a job you love, being good at what you do, and getting paid well to do it. That's, to us, is the filthy rich lifestyle. And that's one of the things that copywriting can do for people who love to write.
That's awesome. And so just kind of I know that was a two-parter question. So how did you stumble into copywriting? Like, how did you even hear about it, learn about it?
Mm-hmm. It's really was kind of stumbling into it, which I feel is unfortunately the way that a lot of people get into it. A billion years ago, when I was in high school, my dad was a marketing director, and he would bring home extra work for me to do, which was great because then I would do the work and he would give me feedback. And, flash forward to college, and I went to school for PR, discovered I hated PR. Out of school, I was, working at a health club, managing the front desk, and then, all that kind of stuff. And knew that it wasn't what I wanted to do. It was fun. Working in health clubs were really fun, but it wasn't fulfilling me. I knew that I didn't want to do it forever. And so there were a good couple of months when I was like teaching Pilates classes and teaching aqua aerobics during the day to pay the bills. And then also like sleeping a lot because I was really depressed and didn't know what I wanted to do. And my mother, bless her, sent me a book that was called something like The Six-Figure Writer or something like that. And the book itself was actually really bad. It was something, like, get yourself a fax machine, like totally useless information. You need a landline. But what it did was remind me that copywriting was an option. And so from there, I dug in and I started building up a freelance career. And, of course, that was like 15 plus years ago, and I was just getting started. So I learned a lot as I went, made a lot of mistakes. But the end result is that my career has spanned 15 plus, getting probably close to 20. And I've worked with, multi-billion dollar companies. I've worked with solopreneurs. I worked with just about every size company in between. And I've been on staff. I've worked as a freelancer, as a contractor. And so I have a wealth of experience. And part of what my company lets me do is share that with our students.
That's awesome. And a little earlier, I think I heard you mention when you were describing being a copywriter, it was the words that you use to capture the audience's attention. So like, what role does vocabulary and knowing different words and understanding the meaning of words play in your line of work?
Yeah, absolutely. I hear that a lot. Like, oh, I don't know if my vocabulary is big enough, or oh, I've never been really good at grammar, or I can't diagram a sentence. Like, remember that from middle school, right? Like, oh, was this the gerund or the participle or whatever else it was? Which I don't know. I still don't know. It's, the interesting thing is that when you're writing for a client, you are writing for them, truly for them, in their brand voice, in words that they would use and in words that their target audience would want to hear. So it's not so much reliant on having like a giant vocabulary as it is having a really good conversation with your client and listening to the words that they are using. And then also talking to your client and asking them for what words their target audience uses, because that's really what is going to connect that company with those people, with their target audience. You know, the funny thing about human beings is if you say something to me and I say it back using roughly the same words, you're going to be like, wow, she really gets me, you know, because just using the same words makes such a huge difference, and can help you as the copywriter convey that your client really gets the needs and wants of their target audience.
That's awesome. So you mentioned that you work with clients of different sizes, you know, billion-dollar corporations, solo entrepreneurs. And I know that every client is unique and every situation is unique, but do you have a favorite type of client that you like to work with best, or you welcome all clients?
I welcome all clients. I will say that I don't have a full client schedule. I do work with, you know, clients every day, still freelancing, but because I work so much with our students, I'm not a full-time copywriter now by any means. But the cool thing about clients is that you kind of never really know what it's like until you get in there. Like, you know, sometimes our students will say, well, I'm interested in working with this kind of client. And I say, well, now wait, here's the thing. Here's an example. I did some work for a while, a few years ago for a company that sold residential tractors. And if you'd ever asked me like, hey, Nicki, do you want to write about residential tractors? Doesn't that sound interesting? I would have said, no, that sounds really, really boring. But the thing is with like every client, the more you dig in and the more you learn about what they have to offer and who's buying them. Like the thing about this residential tractor company was they were saying it wasn't like big farm tractors and it wasn't ride-on mowers. It was like halfway in between. And their target audience was mostly like airline execs. So it's more like changed a little bit right now, but mostly airline execs in like the northwest part of the company who would go and do their, you know, important big jobs every day. But then they had these big houses on these big pieces of land. And what they loved on the weekend was getting on these like jacked up, like somewhere between a mower and a tractor. And they would love like being, you know, like gentlemen farmers on the weekend or whatever. And the more you dig into it, the more you're like, wow, this is so interesting. Who knew that these people even existed? Right. And then it gets really fun. So it's every client that I have ever worked with gets more interesting the more you dig in. And as a copywriter, you have to dig in and learn in order to be effective at what you do.
For sure. That's awesome. So why would you say that copywriting is a great career for people that love to write?
Yeah. So, you know, the thing is that a lot of people who grew up loving writing also grew up hearing like, oh, well, writers don't make any money. You can be a writer, but you better plan to have a day job. Or if you want to be a writer, you know, you're never going to make, you're never going to make bank or anything like that. And very unfortunately, for the most part, that's kind of true. You know, like very few people can have a full-time career as a novelist, and far fewer can make any good money on it. And, you know, journalists very unfortunately don't get paid very well in general. Like bloggers, people writing the actual blog posts, not selling additional stuff, they can't make money, which is really unfortunate, but unfortunately very true. But copywriters, it's a different scenario because the work that we do is creative, yes, but also so strategic. And because companies and organizations can tie the work that we do directly to their goals, copywriters are very valued and we're paid very well. And I should say too, there's a difference between copy, which is like we were saying that marketing and advertising writing that's designed to persuade or, you know, sometimes even literally to sell, and content. Content is your blog posts. Content is designed to educate or to entertain or to inspire. So those are two different things. Copywriters will write blog posts for clients every once in a while, but they'll charge their copywriting rates. Blog writing is that same kind of content writing. It's harder to make good money on it, but copywriting, it's a huge opportunity. And for a lot of people who've grown up thinking, oh, I'll never make any money as a writer, it's really eye-opening to learn that this career exists and that people are doing it every single day all around the world.
For sure. So as a copywriter, how do you find clients? So I know like there are freelance apps like Upwork and Fiverr. So would you say that that's a good resource, or what are your thoughts on that?
No. And there are a lot of people out there who are like, oh, if you want to start freelancing, the place you have to start is Fiverr or Upwork or something like that. But here's the problem. If you take the time to be trained as a copywriter, which you have to be, it's a careers, right? So like any career, you need to be trained, you need to know how to do it. And the problem with sites like Upwork and Fiverr and that kind of thing is that you're putting in a lot of free effort, and you're competing, to put together your proposals, and you're competing largely on price. And there are a lot of people out there who maybe haven't gone through the training that you have that are willing to be like, yeah, I'll totally do this project for you for $20 when it should be a $200, $300, $400 project. And I can say, as someone who has hired designers or developers off of sites like Upwork and Freelancer and all of those, people who go on those sites are looking for the best they can get for the cheapest they can get it. As a copywriter, you're doing yourself a disservice by spending a lot of time on those sites trying to land clients, when instead you can put together a plan to pitch clients directly. And our system makes it very, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to pitch. I don't want to put our system is very value-based. You're not begging for work, you're offering people ideas, and the pitches that our students send out are very well received. So instead of limiting yourself to like this pile of jobs on these sites where they just want to pay you as cheaply as they can, you can completely open up the opportunities and pitch just about any company or organization. Actually, every company or organization needs great messaging, which means they need copywriters. Now, that of course, that doesn't mean that they're going to hire those copywriters, but every organization needs good messaging. Good messaging is how sales are made, how people are persuaded to donate to a nonprofit or something like that. And if they don't have good messaging, they're not going to be successful. They need us.
Wow, that's really powerful. And I think it's a really great idea to go kind of directly to the businesses, go directly to the source. And it's like, you never know what it can lead to. Even if they say no, you could still possibly make a new friend, make a new contact network, and they could possibly point you in the direction of someone who does need your services.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. It's a great point. And the thing is too, is when you put together a really great value-driven pitch, they may not need you at that moment, right? Like that's not going to happen that every moment they need you, or that they read your idea and they're like, oh yeah, I want to hire them right now. But when you put together a great pitch, exactly to your point, they may send you along to someone who does need you, or they save your email for later on when they do need you. So you have all these feelers out all the time.
For sure. And when you say a value pitch, does that mean like you show the potential client the benefits they get from working with you, and what will come out of what they get from the service?
Mm-hmm, great word. So everything with copywriting is based on benefits and the benefit to consumer. And one of the things that you're going to focus on in your pitch email is the benefit of working with a copywriter. But another thing that we do in our emails is we give potential clients ideas of how they can increase their business, or how they can, we give them ideas for projects that will benefit their business. And oh, by the way, I also happen to be a really awesome copywriter who can do that work for you. And so it's really, what you're doing is, instead of being like, hey, I'm a copywriter, do you need some help? Please hire me, blah, blah, blah. You're sending out an email that says, hey, I really love your company. I love when you did this XYZ, or, I saw this post the other day and loved it. I just had this idea. Here's what the idea is. Here's exactly how it could benefit your business. I'm actually a copywriter. If you want to talk about it, I'd love to sit down and chat, or whatever, Zoom call, that kind of thing nowadays. So, do you have time this week? So it's not salesy at all. It's just like, hey, I really love your company. Here's a way that I think I could help you. Let's hop on a Zoom and chat. The vibe is so different, which is why the pitches that our students write versus the pitches that most people write, and pitches like I'm sure you get in your inbox every day, are so different and our students' pitches get received so much better.
That's awesome. So before we started this interview, I was doing a little research, and I stumbled across your websites and just the different outlets that you're on, and you have a great online presence. So how has social media impacted the growth of your business?
I love social media because it gives people a different way to experience us. I've been in business for like 8 years now, and we have a very, very large blog library because I've been, publishing every week. And it's really in the past couple of years that we've built our team up and we have more people on the team, and we've been able to focus on our Instagram account. Our media producer, Julie, does an amazing job. She creates images that are interesting and enticing and make you want to learn more. And then also we have the opportunity to connect with people in a different way. You can go to our website and you can read our blog posts, or you can go to Instagram or Facebook and see images about some of the things we have to offer. And then on Instagram, I've been doing more Instagram lives and answering questions. And I think it's really important because it gives people an opportunity to understand what it's like to work with me and with our team once they get into the course, and they understand that there are real people behind it. Sometimes you sign up for a course, or you start following people and you're like, all right, this is great, but who's actually running this course? What actually happens in this? And the cool thing about social media is as business owners, it's our opportunity to be like, okay, push all that marketing aside. Look, you guys have questions. I'm going to answer your top question today, and, pop back on tomorrow or the day after and answer some more questions. So it's so much more real, and people get a chance to see you as a genuine person.
For sure. It definitely, gives you a chance to humanize the business and personalize it, and I think build better relationships with potential clients.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
For sure. So, being an entrepreneur is difficult, and it takes a lot of time. So how do you stay so productive? What does an average day look like for you?
That's a great question. It's been especially chaotic now because, as you and I were saying, I just moved, so it's been very crazy. And I apologize to your listeners if there's a crazy echo. A lot more space, no carpets. But that's also part of what being a business owner affords you, is that ability to figure out what your day is going to look like and to schedule it according to your needs. One of the biggest breakthroughs for me was figuring out what time of the day I should be working. I was one of those people who 2:00 in the afternoon is not a great time for me to be working, to be writing copy. It's the worst time. And I spent years looking for courses, looking for articles and books, and or looking for energy drinks or whatever, so that I could find some way to be super productive at 2:00, 3:00 instead of passing out on my sofa. Until I finally found, it was some scientific study about the hours, depending on when you get up and what kind of person you are, that you are most productive. And I looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, okay. So morning hours, I already knew that, from 5 o'clock to really 5 o'clock to noonish, 11 noonish, I'm good. I can eke out a little bit more work between 12 and maybe 2, but from 2 to 5, totally useless. I am absolutely useless for creating stuff. Having a conversation, absolutely. Because, it's 2:30, almost 2:30 here. Perfect time for me to have a conversation. But what that really opened my eyes to was stop fighting it. Just do your important work during the hours when you are primed to do that important work. And part of the cool thing about being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, is that you have the ability to schedule your life according to those rhythms. Now, as a business owner, you have a lot of work to do at all times, but you do have that opportunity to switch stuff up. And I could stop spending so much money on energy drinks and powders and capsules and all that stuff that never worked anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you got your start in the copywriting industry, how did you know that you had the right business idea?
Well, I think it was a little bit easier for me because I had done that work for my dad. So I knew that even though I forgot, apparently, that copywriting was a thing, or it just never occurred to me that I could do it for a living. I knew that it was necessary, and I knew that people were doing it. And so once I kind of realized that that was something that I could do, I just jumped in, because I already knew that I liked doing it, and I already knew that I liked writing. And the thing is that, sometimes people are like, well, I like to write, but I don't know if I like copywriting. There's really no downside to learning to write copy. Maybe you learn to do it and you decide you don't want to do it as a career, or you don't want, then you can, if you want to, you can do it to make some extra cash, or it will just make you more marketable as in whatever field you are doing. There is nobody who wouldn't benefit from learning how to craft messages to be more effective, So yeah, because I already had that insight, I kind of knew that I was willing to dig in and do it. But yeah, copywriting is very funny. There are a lot of people out there who are like, I don't believe that this is a real career. And it very much is. There are people working in agencies, there are people working in in-house agencies, there are plenty of people doing it freelance. But I think that because, especially with writers, we tend to be a sensitive bunch, and I think they're like afraid to get their hopes up, like, oh no, could this really be a thing? No, it's a real career. It's funny to me that nobody's like, graphic design, that's not a thing. No one could ever be paid to make pictures. But at the same time, when it comes to copywriting, people are like, oh no, that's not a real career. Yeah, it really is. It really is.
So a little earlier when you were talking about copywriting and what it is, you said there's a creative side to it, but there's also a strategic side to it. So if you had to pick a side that you like the best, the creative side or the strategic side, which one do you kind of gravitate towards the most?
Oh, it's a tough question, because you can't really, in copywriting, you don't really have one without the other. I'll say to people, one of the reasons I really like it is because it's kind of like a word puzzle in a way, because every project has a goal, has a desired outcome, and you're trying to take the reader from this point to this point, and you have messages that you need to work with, and maybe you even have some words that you want to incorporate, like we were talking about earlier, and then it's up to you to like sit down and figure out how you want to put it all together. So it's this fun puzzle. And I think that a puzzle inherently has that creative and strategic element to it. So I'm totally going to bypass the rules of this interview and be like, nope, it's both.
All right, that's cool too. So I heard you kind of mentioning about, I guess your media manager's name was Julia.
Mm-hmm. Julie.
Julie, who runs who helps you run your Instagram account. So what's the importance of having a good team, and how did you build your team?
Oh my God, it's amazing. If there's anybody out there now who's a solopreneur and they're like, I don't know, maybe I don't know if I'm ready yet. Oh my God, just do it. Just do it. Every entrepreneur I know who has started to build a team, we go through this phase of like, well, I need people, but I should wait until I'm making more money, or I should wait until I launch the next thing or whatever. And the thing is, and I've gotten to this with every person that I've brought onto the team, you get to this point where you're like, oh, wait, I'm never going to reach that milestone if I don't bring someone on my team. So it's not, you can't, I have found largely among myself and my entrepreneur friends, it's not you wait until you make more money and then you bring someone on. It's you bring someone on so that you can make more money. I mean, you obviously have plans. It's not going to just happen magically. You bring someone on and then money rains down on you. But you need those people, and that's exactly it. I brought on Julie. Actually, originally was doing our customer service and our media stuff, and since then we're going to launch our own podcast soon. So she's doing our media production and all that kind of stuff. And then I have someone I brought on as a head coach, and she's now becoming our marketing manager. And I have a biz ops manager, and we're actually tomorrow we're starting with a new business assistant, and I cannot emphasize it enough. Friends, bring people on. You need help. It makes such a difference. and all the stuff that you're like, I have to do this because I'm the business owner. Once you give up that stuff that you really don't like, the stuff that really drains you, it makes such a huge difference.
Was it hard to give up did it feel like you were giving up a piece of your business when you were like hiring new employees, and like was it difficult to trust them with your vision?
The funny thing is that I think that if you hire the right people, you don't worry so much about trusting them, and you don't worry so much about them getting the vision. I think that when you communicate it, there's some people who are like, oh, okay, yeah, but when you communicate it to the right person, they're like, they get it and they're excited by it. You can see it in their eyes, and maybe they're like, oh yeah, and we could also do this. And I'm so lucky, and that all the people on our team are those same kinds of people who get excited and who bring ideas to the table, and who really get what we're trying to do. As we have our course, and then as we expand into additional courses and additional offerings, and our big vision is to help people take control of their careers and their lives and their income. And that's like a really cool thing to do on a day-to-day basis,
Right.
Yeah. And our team gets that. And I think that when you hire the right people, you see it in their eyes. When you convey how you're excited about it, if they get excited in that same way, then they're meant to be on your team. And then that makes it a little bit easier too, to be like, all right, we have to do this. And like, yeah, we do have to do this. And it's not even so much a matter of trusting them. It's like, okay, this is what has to be done. Check back with me when you have questions, and then check back with me when it's done,
For sure. So it sounds like your business is like experiencing a lot of growth and expansion right now. And after being in the business for 15 plus years, you can't experience that growth without going over a few roadblocks and potholes. So would you mind talking about like a few of the mistakes that you made early on in your career getting started, and just like some of the lessons that you learned from those mistakes?
Absolutely. Well, and there are really kind of two separate parts of my career, right? Like, so there's the actual copywriting career, which is the 15 plus years. And then there's the teaching people, the entrepreneur, teaching people to become a copywriter, which is the past 8 years or so. But either way, working for yourself is the biggest personal growth opportunity you will ever experience. Some days it's amazing and you're like, yes, I love what I do. And then other days you're like, oh my God, I just don't know if I can do this. But in general, it's an upswing. The average of the days, it's totally worth it. But it really is. It's so funny how it can be up and down on a daily basis. As a copywriter, when I was first getting started, there were things I just didn't understand about marketing myself and about thinking of myself as a business, and continuing to pitch even when I had a lot of referrals coming in. One of the things that we hear a lot is, oh, I'm afraid of going freelance. And we teach people to be on staff if they want an on-staff job. But, if people want to be freelance, they say, well, I'm afraid because I'm afraid of dry spells. And the thing is dry spells don't just magically appear. Dry spells happen because you stopped sending out pitch emails a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago. You were so busy. You're like, oh, I don't have time to pitch. And then that busyness ends and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I don't have any work. It's the dry spells aren't magic. I can tell you exactly why they happened and roughly exactly when you stopped pitching. So that's kind of the copywriting front. On the business owning front and entrepreneurship front, it's actually kind of similar. In fact, we really had our big breakthrough. We've been teaching students for like I said, for about 8 years. But we really had a big breakthrough the past 2 years. We've started to really ramp up, and which is very cool because, the more you ramp up, then the more you have students who are out there, and where it used to where we would enroll only a certain number of students per month, and we get, some students talking about their wins. Like every day in the group, people are like, oh, I landed my first client, or, oh my God, I got my first retainer client, or, absolutely well through COVID. We had people quitting their full-time jobs because they were doing so well freelancing at copywriting in the middle of COVID. But the big breakthrough for me as a business owner, roughly 2 years ago, was to really embrace the fact that I was a business owner. You know, I was teaching and it was still very high quality training, but I was really kind of treating it as almost more of a hobby. You know, I would have said, yes, this is a business, but in my head, I think I treated it more as a hobby. Whereas a couple of years ago, I started to think, okay, you know, if you really want to be of service to people and you really want to help as many people as possible build their own thriving careers, what would that take from you as a person? And what I had to do was really start embracing the fact that I was the owner of this company, the CEO of this company. And, you know, the days that I was like, well, I don't want to do this, I don't feel like doing this. Like, okay, if you were an employee at any other company and you said, oh, I don't want to do this, they'd kick you out, you know? So why was I letting myself, as both the CEO and the employee, why was I as the CEO totally okay with myself as the employee being like, I'll just do it tomorrow. You know, that's not how it works. I had to get through, I had to face up to fears or challenges or anything like that and just do it anyway, because that's what my business required of me. And when I stepped up to that, then that's when I started to really see, or when we started to really see more success. And the cool thing about our success is that it's not like, oh, our business is getting bigger. Yeah, that's great. And believe me, that's great. But literally what we do is every day we help people like take control of their careers and their incomes, which is like the coolest thing in the world. You know, when people are like, thank you so much, or I love this course, this is, you know, before I thought this would never happen, and now look at me, I'm doing it's amazing. And I think that's part of what makes our community so strong, and part of what gets my team and I so excited to get down to work every day.
Do you think it was an exact event or an exact moment that triggered the kind of switch in your head to say, okay, I need to really kick it in high gear? Or was it kind of you saw what the business was doing and you knew you had more in you? So if you push yourself, you knew the business could go till infinity. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I remember I went to a business event 2 or 2.5 years ago, and they were like, all right, well, what's your challenge? And I was like, I just don't feel like I'm taking my business seriously. So I kind of knew what the problem was, but I didn't know how to solve it. And I guess it just took me like a couple of months of ruminating on it and just kind of exploring what that meant to not be taking it seriously as a business, because I knew what the potential was, but I just wasn't reaching that potential. So yeah, I wish I could remember if there was some like breakthrough where I woke up and was like, step up. But I don't. I just looking back, I know that as soon as I was like, all right, if you want to take your business seriously, then take your business seriously. What do you have to do? What has to get done? What, like, oh, I'm scared to increase my Facebook ads budget. Okay, do it anyway, you know?
Right. So what would you say is your favorite part about being an entrepreneur?
Oh, my favorite part about being an entrepreneur. I would say it was 2 parts. See, I'm breaking the rules again. The first part is absolutely the actual impact we can have on people's lives. And in fact, one of the reasons that I kept doing it for so long with, you know, kind of, and again, my fault, the kind of middling results for the first couple of years, even though we had a really great training, was because early on, one of the students came to me and was like, hey, just so you know, I started your course about 6 months ago. About 3 months ago, I was laid off from my job. She said, but because I had your course, I was able to pick up work. And she's like, and I now have a full-time contracting job at one of the, or, you know, 40-hour-a-week contracting job at one of the biggest advertising agencies in Chicago. And I was like, holy shiz, like, how cool that something I did helped someone, you know. And I don't want that to sound like an ego trip, because it's also very humbling at the same time that this is the kind of impact that you can have. So, I mean, talk about a big responsibility in terms of making sure that you give people everything that they need to know and everything you have to offer. So that's definitely a big part of it. And the second part too is being able to to have ideas and to run with them. You know, like when you work for a company, you can like put together a great proposal and be like, oh my God, I know this would be so great. This is going to make such a big impact. And you give it to your boss and they're like, oh, okay, that's really so interesting, where this doesn't fit with the calendar for this year. So, you know, definitely bring this back to me next year. And when you're an entrepreneur, it's you. You know, you can say, yeah, this is a really awesome idea. And we do have to be careful about splitting our focus, because it can be very easy to be like, ooh, new shiny object, which is, you know, part of taking your business seriously. But it's you. You get to be in charge of what areas you expand into and what new offerings you bring to the table and all that kind of stuff. It's frightening sometimes to be in charge, but at the same time, it's also exhilarating.
Sure. So what would you say is the single most important reason for your success?
It's definitely been taking myself seriously as a business. And, you know, you have to do that even if you're a freelancer. It's one of the things we teach our students. You have to do that as a freelancer. You have to do it if you are, you know, starting a business and you're doing it part-time. If you're a freelancer doing it part-time, which, you know, everyone, frankly, everybody needs to have a back pocket career. If there's one thing that we have learned that I think we're all starting to learn, but like 2020 made it very serious, you have to have something that you can do as a freelancer. You need some kind of backup. And, you know, when the year isn't crazy, then you also have extra cash for like vacations or college funds or anything like that. But, you know, whether you are a freelancer or whether you are an entrepreneur, you don't have the luxury of being like, oh, maybe I'll do this or maybe I don't do that. Like, you have to take yourself seriously. If you want other people to take you seriously, you have to take yourself seriously.
For sure. And that's definitely an important piece of it. Like, you have to take yourself seriously. And I know it, like when you first start a business, you can be kind of self-conscious about it. Like, oh man, are people gonna really believe that I'm doing this? Are they gonna believe me or whatever, you know? So it's a lot of mental barriers to get over when you're first starting out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But I will say one of the things that I always say to my students, you know, because we teach them everything they need to know. It's very step by step. But there still is that element of like, oh, now I have to actually go out there and interact with people and like actually do the copywriting. And that can be scary. But and you know, there'll be posts sometimes about like, oh, I need to do this. I'm afraid to do it. And actually the very cool thing is that our Facebook group, our student Facebook group, is like incredibly supportive, like the nicest, smartest people in the world. But what I will say to students again and again is that you don't get confident and then take the action. It's not how it works. You get confident by taking the action. You know, if you're going to sit around and wait to get confident or wait to feel like you know what you're doing, it's not going to happen. You're going to be waiting forever. But when you take that action, on the other side of that action is where that confidence lies, is where that self-assurance lies.
That's a really great point. You know, if I guess for the next question is, has there or what has been the most critical moment of your business journey? So like a fight or flight kind of moment.
Let's see. The most critical moment of my business journey. I think that a lot of people think that business is a lot faster than it is. And I'm specifically talking about business versus freelancing, because actually freelancing can be very fast. You know, like our students, for example, we just saw a post the other day that was like, I bought the course 11 days ago and I just landed my first client. Freelancing can be very quick, but building a business, building an entrepreneurial venture, that usually takes some time to get your message right, to get what it is that you're selling right, to get your marketing right. And I think that a lot of people think that it's going to come a lot faster than it is. And I think the I don't know if there was actually a point, but just a matter of, in fact, there wasn't a point. It was the fact that I just stuck with it for so long. That was the biggest impact in my business, that I could have thrown in the towel, been like, well, I launched it and, dozens of people aren't purchasing, because I definitely, believe me, when I first launched, I was like, yeah, this is awesome. This is amazing course. People are going to come running to me and buy it like crazy. And guess what? That's not actually what happens. But and so I spent a lot of years tweaking, adding to the course and tweaking how we offered it and tweaking the messaging and all that kind of stuff. And I think that there are a lot of people who want to be entrepreneurs that don't want to go through that period, that don't want to be like, all right, it kind of sucks right now, and I kind of don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to stick with it because it is possible. And I think that was the thing that really made the difference in my business, was sticking with it because I knew that there was a possibility to be doing something bigger than I was. I hadn't figured out yet how to do it, but I knew that it was possible.
For sure. I read a meme a few weeks ago. It was a quote by Bill Gates. And it was something like, people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but they underestimate what they can do in 10 years. So that kind of just reminded me of what you were talking about. Like, you have to stick with it, and then over time, I guess within 5 or 6 years of your business, you said it really started to expand and take off the past 2 years. So that just shows, how consistency pays off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is too, is the cool thing too, is being an entrepreneur. Now that I know some of the things that I did that made that really big change, and some of the marketing systems that we use. Now as an entrepreneur, I can put a course together, which is one of the things we're working on for 2021, to teach other people how to do that. It's the digital industry is so cool because you constantly have this ability to share and connect and meet new people exactly the way we're doing right now. There has never been a better time to get into business.
For sure. So who do you look up to for inspiration?
Oh, good question. I think that the funny thing is, actually, she used to be my client, and then she has kind of become my business coach. Her name is Stacy Tuschel, and she is so smart. She works with both people who have brick and mortar businesses, and then she works with people who have digital businesses. And she's so on the ball, and she has multiple 7-figure businesses. I'm sure she's got to be getting close to 8 at some point soon. And I love to see her operate. So when I'm learning from her, when I'm talking to her, it's just fascinating to see the way her mind thinks and the direction she's taking her team and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And I know it's great to be around people like that to kind of just soak up that information and kind of get that energy from them, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
For sure. So how do you define success as an entrepreneur?
You know what? I think that success as an entrepreneur is feeling better about where you are now than you were a month ago. And I would say a month versus feeling better than you did yesterday. Because like we were saying, the ups and downs can happen so quickly. They can happen in the course of a day. There'll be some mornings where you're like, yes, life is awesome. And then, something happens in the middle of the afternoon. You're like, oh my God, I want to give it up. But if you can look back a month hence and say, all right. And so maybe it's not perfect yet, but I'm making progress, and I'm growing as a person, and I'm making a difference in people's lives. That's success to me.
For sure. How would you like for people to remember you and your company?
Ooh. I would like people to remember us as a company that genuinely cared about helping them succeed. There's no benefit to us for people to buy our course and then not do anything with it. We succeed when our students succeed, and that's in this current course and in the additional courses that we are planning. So I think that's how I would like people to see us now and to remember us in the future as a group of people who are really dedicated to helping them achieve what it is they want to achieve.
That's awesome. And earlier I heard you mention, some courses that you were working on and working on a podcast as well. So what does the future of Filthy Rich Writer look like?
Filthy Rich Writer will continue to expand. We have a couple of live events planned this year. They'll be virtual, of course, but a couple of live events for our students planned, taking what we did in the past and really expanding on them and making them more exciting, and making sure that we're continuing to support our students. But we actually last year incorporated, and I'm coming up on the 1 year incorporation. I'm going to need a cake. But so Nicki K Media is our parent company. And so within Nicki K Media, we're adding additional courses so that we can help additional audiences.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And to end every podcast before we get out of here, we like to play a quick rapid fire question game at the end. So if you're up for it, I'll ask you a few questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
For sure. Question number 1, where's your favorite place to travel?
I love Barcelona. I love it. I can't wait to get back there.
What do you love about it?
I love how welcoming the city feels. The first time I went there, I was like, I knew a little bit of Spanish, but not much. And would just kind of wander the streets. And it just has such a great vibe. And it's such a beautiful city. And there's so many amazing places to eat. I love it.
For sure. Question number 2. What song explains your life the most?
What song explains my life the most? You know what? Actually, if I had to have a theme song, I think it would probably be, you remember that old show? You probably don't remember that old show, but there's that old show, Mary Tyler Moore. And it goes like, you can turn the world on with your smile. Who can turn the world on with their smile? Who can turn the world on with their smile? And so Joan Jett does this like punky rock version of it. And that I think would be my little personal theme song.
I never heard of it before, but I'm gonna have to go check it out.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Check out the Joan Jett version.
For sure. And look, last question. What's an amazing thing that you did that no one was around to see?
An amazing thing I did no one was around to see. Oh man. Geez. God, I feel like Instagram now that if I do anything amazing, I want the world to know. Like I literally just got my first ever, I'm a grown woman and I just got my first ever washer dryer. And it literally, as soon as we get off this call, I'm going to post it to Instagram and be like, I did laundry in my own house. So yeah, there's very little that the world is not going to know about. I'm telling you guys everything.
True. Thank you so much. So Nicki, where can people find you on social media?
Absolutely. So you can find us at filthyrichwriter.com or, Filthy Rich Writer on Instagram. And if you've been listening and you think that maybe copywriting might be something you'd be interested in doing, head over to freecopywritingtraining.com, where we put together a free training video that talks about, how to land your first copywriting clients. But even if you're not ready for landing your first copywriting clients, it's still got a ton of information that'll give you just a better idea of what copywriting is and whether it could be a good choice for you.
That's awesome. Nicki, thank you so much for your time today. I learned a lot. This was a great interview, and thanks again.
Thank you. This was tons of fun.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks. You too.